Welcome back to a little show called Waiting for a Movie That Shall Not Be Named to Come Out, where I, Gail, am getting some reviews of movies old and new out of my system and into the sewer that is this platform, detoxing, if you will. I do not want to think about the movie that shall not be named today, so I decided to watch Kroll 2019 instead for the third time, but the first time since I saw it twice back in 2019. Kroll 2019 is a horror thriller directed by Alexandre Aja, written by the Rasmussenbrüder, and then it was produced by 3 people, including Aja, but I want to specifically mention Sam Raimi. At the time, this was one of 2 things that drew me to see the movie and actually got me excited for it because, of course, Sam Raimi also produced Don't Breathe from 3 years prior, which I loved, and I had not really seen anything touched by his grubby little hands in a while. The Grudge remake, Grudge, had not yet come out, and then I buried the traumatically boring memory of the event that was Poltergeist 2015. So I still thought at the time that him being attached to a project meant that it would be decent at the very least. But I was wrong, I guess. Good directors' talents age like fruits. They are ripe for a while before they rapidly overripen and then decompose. Also, can I just add that 2019 was 5 years ago? I was only 19 then. Gosh, I was practically a baby. Who let me watch this violent crocodile movie? Anyway, Alexandre Aja's name also drew me to this movie because he was, of course, responsible for Haute Tension de 2003, the Hills Have Eyes remake from 2004, and...
What? What was that?
Prana 3D, okay? Alright, let's go ahead and get to the review here. Let's crawl now. But before we crawl, I just want to say spoilers, so now you know. Heaven forbid I spoil Kroll, but seriously, like with all of my reviews, you sort of have to have seen and maybe even remember the movie to get what I'm saying, but I will of course try to include as many visual references as possible. Let me just say that I enjoyed the movie even after seeing it so many times, coming to know what to expect. Indeed, I think it actually became better over time because I remember being quite disappointed after my first watch. But of course, over time, I have come to love how the movie looks, the performances, the attention to detail, and how well some of the justifications for things being the way they are or going in the direction they do are effectuated. Let me just comment on how the movie looks first. Kroll is a movie that looks heavy in the same way that a face with too much makeup and bronzer looks heavy. All of those adjustments look like they have some heft to them, and this movie's is no exception. The color palette of this movie is very aptly swampy, vividly so, and a bit dim, but not too dark. Our protagonists, who I will now refer to as the Protag, our Protag's attire contrasted highly with her surroundings, even though she did not wear it the entire time throughout the entire movie. A nice touch. Overall, her attire was very geographically appropriate, but if I am being honest, I've never actually been to Florida, but I imagine this is the type of thing that Floridians wore in about the 2010s, when I believe this movie takes place, based on the technology. In essence, I liked the dramatic scenery, and I think that given what type of movie this is, it would have been very, very easy to strive for utter realism, but they did not, and I think that choice, even given the fact that the alligators are, for the most part, computer-generated, worked. I also appreciated the audio cues present throughout the movie and how thoughtfully implemented they were. For example, these could be anything from the dog barking, creaking, the thunder outside, the storm, or the bellow of a gator. In a tight space such as the one in which we spend most of the movie, in order to maintain suspense, the only thing they can really do while our characters are immotile is to not interrupt the ambient noises of their chaotic setting. I think that a lesser movie would have actually blighted those sounds, making them probably inaudible at times, just so we can better hear the dialogue or the music or whatever they want to emphasize. In conjunction with the audio and the color grade of the movie, I just love how disgusting the movie is too. So I guess I'm talking about the props and the sets. It contributed plenteously and worked well in conjunction with Kroll's style, in my opinion. There was just so much debris and filth in the water, it really did appear very swampy, except for maybe when it looked perhaps a bit too clear and teal. But even in light of that, all in all, there were spiders, rats, mud, algae, feces. The only things missing really were snakes, because I know those are a thing in Florida. Anaconda, anyone? No, I think that we can probably go without another sequel to that. But yeah, I felt so dirty while watching this. I felt like a dirty boy. Like a dirty Victorian boy. Oh no, I have the... Let's talk dialogue. I actually appreciated the little pointless strings of dialogue. In a movie where you are simply telling a story about a person or people who find themselves in a precarious situation with an animal or monster in the mix, a creature feature, you really do not need to have a central theme or very complex dialogue. When I think of a really great killer crocodile / alligator movie, I actually think of Rogue from 2007. But do not quote me on that. It has been at least 7 years since I last saw that, but I do remember it well. And I know for a fact that they told the story of that group stranding on that tiny island in a very direct, matter-of-fact way. Also, the crocs looked pretty good for the time. That movie came out in 2007. The theme of the movie? Fear. The lesson learned? Don't go to Australia. Additionally, the protag of that movie did not have to overcome any silly mortal problems like drinking, getting over the death of maybe a child / ex-partner, childhood trauma, etc. While I liked that there was a focus on little nuggets of irrelevant chit-chat, the focus on a select few small details, such as the height marker of our protag and her sibling, and other more indirect character development, mostly delivered interpersonally, the obligation that these movies feel to give our protag, who is supposed to be a normal person, who prior to these events was just living their life, giving them an arc does tend to mess with the movie's consonance. This is to say that it can make the film feel more manufactured in spite of the actors and crew's best efforts, both of which were very efficient. Kaya Scodelario was amazing in this role. I think it would have been more effective, however, if they leaned into the open-endedness of these events' impact on her and all, more subtly. I do not really care that the protag was a swimmer of all things. I actually like that she does not believe that she is capable of actually succeeding or saving herself and her father because she has been failing in her life as of late. Overcoming the many hurdles across which she stumbles or swims ends up being a momentous achievement. However, it would have been nice to not get flashbacks to her childhood. Haley's is the name of the protagonist, by the way, in case you do not remember, because her and her dad actually do discuss her vigor and endurance at length. even verbally citing examples.
I never thought it would end like this.
You remember when you were little? When Beth could hold her breath for the length of the pool and you couldn't? Well, Haley, that night, I woke up about 2 in the morning and I saw you in the pool, taking your giant breath again and again. And you did it, Haley. You figured that shit out all by yourself. And that's when I knew this kid's a
Also, a flashback is just about the last thing that I want to see during a tense struggle with an alligator. I actually have this same criticism of this other movie called The Grey, but that movie was truly something else, going overboard with showing off the most boring stock standard memories of that movie's Protag, Liam Neeson. Is there no other sensory cue you can trigger other than a visual one? I would have actually probably been fine with them, or more fine with them, if those colorless, bleak flashbacks were only included in the opening meet scene. I don't know, instead of those, introduce a close-up of her eye, or a sound, or a movement to insinuate anamnesis, nostalgic conditions, if you want to remind us of her past. But just anything but this. But whatever. The movie was fine for the most part, and it did have some of the most effective jump scares that I have seen in a very, very long time. I actually cannot think of anything that has topped this movie, or topped 2 jump scares in particular in this movie that actually almost got me. But I will not show those here so as not to spoil the fun. I actually do recommend revisiting the movie, if not for those scenes alone, assuming that you've already seen it. You have seen it, right? Now, before I go away, this being a creature feature and a horror thriller means that there are a few checklist items that I must cross off quickly. Alright, incredibly long scene in which our character moves and thus uses more oxygen than they would have if they had been still, yet does not drown. Check. Though she is a professional, so... Tertiary character making a dumb decision so they may find themselves in a specific situation. In this case, they investigate something that is obviously a danger. Check. But also, how did they not see a Mrs. on their way in a very loud police boat? By the way, Mrs. is short for Alligator mississippiensis, which is the species name for alligators. Yeah, we're just close like that, I guess. Shh, shh. No, baby. No. Go back down to the basement. I'm busy. Yeah, that's it. Speaking of which, the boat actually gets stuck on some aquatic weeds, so... check? I don't know. A character ends up drowning before immediately being saved in a time-intensive trial. Check. Dead body pops up as a jump scare for our Protag. Looks like this one cannot be crossed off because it was more of a casual discovery, so good job, Ahhh, and the other 2 riders. Expendable randos get offed in various gruesome ways because our cast is too small. Check. A dog in danger of getting chomped by a big bad force of nature. Check. Trust me, this is actually a trope somehow. Is there anything else I can bring up?
To you for the deal. Just couldn't sign the papers. I don't want to.
Mr. Keller, with all due respect, shut up. Yeah, so I ended up giving this movie a 6 out of 10 upon rewatching it. alligator Mississippiensis, more like alligator Mississippiensis, because you're the only 6 I'm Mississippi. Sounded better in my head. Look, it was mostly inoffensive. While some of the computer effects could have used some extra love in post, it was not flusteringly bad or distracting. They could have definitely over-seasoned this movie with cheese, if you know what I mean. So yeah, the dialogue was actually so normal. I actually found it to be endearing and pretty hilarious when Haley, the Protag, delivered that one cringeworthy line. It did not come out of nowhere, but I did not expect her to say that, of all things, to say the least. It caught me off guard in a good way, I think.
You need to swim. You got this! You're faster than they are! What are you? Swim!
Apex Predator all day! Yes!
Oh my god. Alright, the video's over now. You can leave. Please clap.
Oh,